So first, why are we going to talk about this? I think more than anything else, interviewing has become a huge challenge for the candidate, mostly because schools are constantly changing and their budgets are shrinking, and they need to have an economical way to process and screen those people who are interested in the jobs they have to offer. Another reason to do this is because most of you, like most new teachers, have very little experience in dealing directly with people who run schools and with others who will serve you later. So by doing this sort of talk tonight, we're going to hopefully lessen your anxiety because we hope to clarify some things that might be causing you some nervousness. So the other purpose is to tell you that preparing for an interview is probably the best thing you can do to improve your chance for success. So we're going to move right along. First of all, we're going to mention the types of interviews, what happens in them, how you can prepare for them, some examples of good and bad strategies, as well as the question and answer segment at the end. So first of all, there is a phone interview. As you can imagine, very short and sweet. Then there's an interview that is done on video, which is relatively a new concept, unless you're out of the country, which is another reason they use that. There is the on-site interview, which is perhaps one of the most familiar to people. And of course, the demo lesson, where you go in and actually teach a class or two. After those, there come follow-ups. Follow-ups come in many forms. Hopefully you would have a follow-up by phone, which is why we put it here. And of course, we're all aiming for the follow-up on-site interview, which is the clincher, if you will. So let's talk first about the phone interview. This is primarily a tool for screening. When departments or school districts get applications in large numbers, they have to screen first for the information that you present them in the resume. And they usually have three piles. One is not relevant, one is very interesting, and one is saved for another time and another purpose. So you hope to be in that middle pile where you're interesting to them. Typically, they will email you or somehow contact you by phone to let you know of the date and time that they would call you. And basically, you need to have the decks clear a few minutes before that so you can collect your thoughts. And certainly you want to be there in a relaxed way. So by knowing the time and date, you can advise your family to give you some space. Typically, these would take no more than 20 to 30 minutes. There's really no point in going beyond that unless they continue to question you. And sometimes they will do that to save time later. So how would you get ready for this? Find the quietest place in your house that has access to your phone. Sit yourself down by yourself. There is nothing worse than hearing a little child pitter-patter behind you when you're doing a phone interview. You also want to be as comfortable as possible, though I do recommend not laying down or sitting on the floor. You want to sit at a table. You want to have specific documents in front of you. You also want to be sure that your posture is going to let your voice come through the phone to its fullest volume. You want to have your resume and personal statement in front of you. The personal statement is rather a belief statement in why you want to teach should that question come along. That belongs in a different workshop. We'll do that another time. Bullet points. If there are specific things that you feel are standouts for you, you should have a little paper beside you where you have listed a few things that you want to make sure that you communicate to the interviewer. Maybe only 5 or 6. Keep it small or limited so that you can reference it easily. You also need to have pen and paper for note taking because often they will make arrangements for you and you have to be quick to be able to write that down. Don't be afraid to ask them to repeat if necessary. They may ask you quick, brief questions. They don't expect long answers. They may only expect you to answer in about a minute. Before you get ready for this, however, before you actually sit down to do it, the last point is very important. Explore the school website, whether it's the district or the specific school, particularly because you want to know what they believe in. You want to read all those mission statements, value statements, whatever they have placed there as public information about their school. You want to know all that you can so that If you're given the chance to ask a question on the phone, it may not happen, but if you're given the chance, you want to be able to reference something that you've learned about their school. Of course, the best thing that can happen with a phone interview is that they will ask you to come on site, and that's what the goal is. I went too far. Okay. The video interview is rather a new technique, although I've used this, and it's very, very helpful. We had to interview someone who was out of the country for a French job once, and this teacher came through glowingly over the internet video. We actually Skyped her, and it worked very well. So this can take the place of a phone interview, and in fact, it's a more interesting approach because not only does it save them time, it also helps them screen those people that they feel would be interesting to meet in person. You also get a chance to show who you are. So this is a little different because they can see your face, they can see your body. So we're going to talk about that a little bit too. So of course, you want to dress as if you were going to work. For men, you would want to have a dress shirt and tie, hopefully a coat if you have one. For ladies, please no cleavage. You want to dress in a very business-like manner to show that you're serious about this. Please sit at a very clean area because they're going to see whatever's in front of you if it's on the screen. Again, you want to be very, very uncluttered so that you can reach for whatever document you want to reference. Again, I want to stress that who's ever running around should not be near you during the interview. Make sure your children are outside of the room. Again, you want to have those personal documents in front of you, pad and paper for note taking. They will ask you questions in this kind of interview. There's no question about it. You will get several questions to answer. Your answer does not need to go beyond a minute. The nice thing about this is if you've done your research, you will know how to answer the questions they pose to you. So my best advice in getting ready for this is to practice in front of your computer. If you have Skype, use it because that's the kind of tool that they will use. You want to make sure that you are lined up perfectly so they can see your face. You don't want to be sitting directly in front of it, but with a little distance so they can see your position as you sit there. Now I put here body language because quite honestly, this can be a real negative if you aren't aware of your own body language. One of the first things I would say to you is that you don't want to touch your face or your hair during this interview. You want to sit straight. You don't want to be fidgeting with your hands. If you're afraid of fidgeting, my advice is put your hands in your lap and hold your knees so that you don't use your hands too much. Should you smile? I think if it's warranted, I would go ahead and smile. You don't want to look like you're a China doll. You want to look like you're a real person. Of course, they're going to ask you questions about why you want to teach. What is it about this particular school that interests you? That sort of thing is how you prep for this. So it's not the kind of question that is one fits all. It's your take on their school that they want to measure. And they also want to measure how interested you are. So the best outcome for this would be an invitation to come to an on-site interview, just as it would be for the other interview. Okay. So if you get an on-site interview, this is a great thing. It's a signal that you have interested them. Not only has your resume won you a spot, but somehow their contact with you is making a difference. This will come after you've had some initial screening, of course. It's typically a set date that they will give you. They will give you a set time and where you're going to meet them. And often it's an appointment at a district office, so you may not go directly to the school if it's a shorter interview. So how do you get ready for this? Some of this is for the day of, and some of it you need to do ahead of time. So I'll try to preface that for you. So first and foremost, you want to sleep and eat well beforehand because this sort of thing eats a lot of energy. So please don't think you should skip your breakfast or your lunch to do this. It's not a good idea. You need that energy. It's also not a good idea to drink an energy drink before you do this because you don't want to be nervous. Business dress again. Now these things are very, very important. And this is what you need to know beforehand. How do you get to where you're going? Now, you can certainly use any GPS you have, but you want to make sure that you go to the right building, because if it's a district office, it may be camouflaged behind other buildings. Where you're going to park, sometimes they have a special parking area for guests who come. Where you should go when you get there. School buildings are notorious for having many entrances, so you want to know which one is the right one for you. And also, if there's a contact person you should ask for when you go to the door. Oftentimes, you have to have that person's name so that they will let you in. Another piece of advice is to go early, mainly because if you go early, you take some of the stress out. Secondly, you get to watch other people approaching the building, so that's also positive. You can get a sense of what's going on there. The last point here says recognize that you are interviewing them. The interview is nothing more than interplay. And if you can understand that you are doing as much to find out what's in it for you as they are trying to discover what you can offer to them, you're going to do much, much better with the whole scenario. It can be a lot of fun, even though you're nervous, even though you're tense. This can be a really fine experience, and that's what I hope for all of you. Okay, continuing with the on-site. It can be a partial day or a demo lesson. If it's a partial day, it can go anywhere from 45 minutes to 2 hours. It does depend on the process that the district has. But you may expect to be interviewed by as many as 3 or 5 people in a 2-hour interview. So what do you bring? You always bring a 2-pocket folder. That way, if something gets loose, it's not going to fall all over the place. So I always recommend bringing a folder that has pockets. And in that, have it very organized, where your documents are and where your pens and paper are. The documents are always going to be the same. Your personal statement, your resume, the recommendations you may have, because oftentimes they haven't gotten those yet, and they may ask to photocopy them while you're there. Please bring your teaching certificate, because they can also take a copy of that. If you don't have one, they have ways of getting them. Pens, and by that I mean if you are eligible for one, they can get it for you. Pen and paper always. Also bring a list of questions you want to ask them. And this goes along with the research you've done regarding the school district. If you know they have a specialty or they're a magnet school for something, look that over carefully and come up with questions about how that's progressing. Are they measuring it? What do they plan to do in 5 years? This shows forward thinking, and that is exactly the kind of person they're looking for. Okay, let's talk about the demo lesson. The full day includes many, many people, and you should not be intimidated by that. There are ways to get ready for this, and these specific ideas are critical to your success doing a demo lesson. First of all, you're going to ask ahead of time before you actually get there, and I would suggest a week ahead if you can, about your teaching demo. Get as much lead time as you possibly can have. You want to know the level of the class or classes that you'll be teaching. I know for my purposes, we always ask someone to teach 2 different classes, 2 different levels, so that we could see how able they were to be flexible and their knowledge. So you also want to know the class sizes. Are there 20? Are there 30? How many kids are in each section that you will be teaching? Because you want to bring your own copies of anything you want to give them. That way, it shows your initiative. It also shows that you're in charge, and that's exactly what they're looking for. You want to know how long you will be expected to teach. I have had people who don't teach the length of time that they've been asked to. We asked for 45 minutes. After 20, we had a person say, "Oh, I'm done." And we were just sitting there looking at each other saying, "Really?" So you want to make sure that you fill the time they give you. You might ask the textbook that's being used, what the chapter context is, if they're not going to give you the textbook to use. The next point is technology. You want to know what kind of technology is available in each classroom you'll be in, what technology is regularly used there, and are you expected to know those programs? They may ask you what you do know, whether it's the PC side or if it's the Mac side, but that would be helpful to you. You want to know any specific items that you are supposed to cover. Um, I'm using specific examples. We asked someone to cover the subjunctive mode in Spanish one time, and the girl only covered one of many reasons for using the subjunctive, and that did not impress us because there is more to it than that. So you want to be very sure what you should cover. You also want to know, and this is critical, where the students are in the lesson. Are they on day 3 of a 10-day lesson? Are they on day 10 of a 10-day lesson? It will matter in terms of whether you are presenting something for the first time or whether you're recombining it or reviewing it. So be sure to ask those things. You also want to practice the lesson timing. Now, you can use many ways to do this. You can put a clock on and see how you do, but don't do it just once. You want to do it 3 or 4 times. You may want to say, I'm going to spend 2 minutes on this and tag each item by how many minutes you want to spend, making sure that you are covering the amount of time that you wish to or that you've been asked to. Another thing you can do, and I've done this myself, I clip a number 1 to the first activity and then a number 2 to the second and a 3 and a 4 so that I know exactly where I'm going when I lay out what I'm doing in front of students. Um, Another thing you might want to do, which is great fun for the kids, ask them to take a piece of paper out, to fold it in half lengthwise, when I say lengthwise, so that it can stand up. And they're going to print their name very large, their first name, and put that in front of them facing you so that you can call on them during the lesson. It's very impressive for the people observing you that you take the time to do something like that because, again, it shows that you're in control and also shows the students that you want to know who they are and not just say yes to the student or yes, young man or yes, young woman. Excuse me. You want to organize and articulate very carefully what it is you're going to do. The practice will make sure that it flows. Articulation means you're going to speak very clearly so the students know what you want them to do. So practice giving those instructions so they get the concept. Also, it's always a good idea to bring extra activities. You may never use them, but I know from my own experience, I tend to go faster when I'm nervous. So I often would end up with 5 extra minutes in a class. So I always had spare things to do so that it didn't look like I had run out. If they give you any directions, please don't ignore them. That is a real turnoff. It's something that the people observing you are going to say, well, how are they going to handle a whole day here if they couldn't handle a lesson and we gave them specific instructions? Okay, what you're going to bring for the demo lesson. This time you're going to bring 2 pocket folders. One will have all of your personal documents that has nothing to do with your demo lesson. The other, if you're doing only one demo lesson, will contain all the things you need for that lesson, the photocopies, the lesson plans, everything you've got. If you're doing 2 lessons, then one side of it will be for one lesson, one side for the other. Do not mix them up. Keep them very separate so you're very, very organized. It will be very clear to the observers that you're ready, and that's the impression you want to give. Of course, you always want to bring extra paper and pens. Your lesson plans and photocopies for the demos have to be there. You may want to bring your own flash drive if there's something special you want to do with the children, and so it's a good idea to have it handy and ready to plug in. Also, write down any questions you want to ask the interviewers. You can often get very good feedback immediately after you have done your lesson. If their faces aren't showing you their reaction, feel free to ask a couple of questions about how you handled a particular topic. That shows your high interest and also that you're not afraid to have constructive criticism given to you. Okay, who are you going to meet on this demo day? Well, you can meet a variety of people. There are many new names for new offices. And when you explore the website, you might even find out some other positions. I'm giving you bare bones here. You hope to meet the principal or a vice principal, depends on the size of the district. A district supervisor expertise will probably be involved. The head of your department or team will probably be there. You'll meet some teachers who are in your department or team or grade level. and probably a representative from guidance would be there. Sometimes they bring a mix of teachers to sit down around a table in a more relaxed way to talk with you and to get a feel for what you're like. Okay, so what is the day plan like? Typically, they have you meet the supervisory people right at the beginning of the day. Occasionally, that would be at the end of the day, but that's kind of flexible. So don't be put off if you meet the person first or last. That has no bearing at all. Sometime for the sake of economy, they'll put the supervisory person at the end so that they've already gotten feedback about you. So if they don't have you meet them at first, don't worry. It just means it's going a different way. They usually want you to see the school. They'll give you a tour. And again, if you know what the school is famous for, you want to ask to see that part. You want to see wherever that program is that's going on there that's unique to that school. You want to observe the students in action, and if you have a chance to comment about what you saw that students doing that impressed you, feel free to do that. That shows you're cued in and you're focused, and it leaves a good impression. You'll also meet other people you'll be working with, and that's always a good thing because they're either going to be extremely businesslike because they have several people to interview, or they could be very warm towards you, and that's always a good feeling. Keep in mind that every time slot they give you for whatever it is, there's a reason for it, and they want to see you in a variety of settings, and that's why they set up this day. You are expected to interact with everyone that meets with you, so you want to be as friendly as you can, but still very businesslike. Do not relax as the day goes on. The idea is to keep that persona of someone who's here to do a job and to do it well all day long. One thing I want to point out to you, when you're doing your demo, you may have several people come in to watch you. And I say this because I've done it, and I'm not put off by it anymore, because what it does is allowing people to come in and stay for 15 minutes gives more people a chance to react to you. It's a little off-putting unless you're very focused on your lesson. And all you have to do is give them a smile when they're coming in or when they're leaving, and keep going with your lesson to let them know you're not rattled by it. Because typically in schools, the open door policy is what it is. People come and go in your classroom all the time. So don't be upset by that. Okay, so let's talk about indicators of good versus bad performance. We'll talk about the good first. A neat appearance makes all the difference. Do not wear your killer heels. Do not wear your piercings, unless it's just your regular pierced earring thing. You want to look conservative, and you want to look very neat. You want to have that business appearance. Also, make sure to maintain eye contact when people are talking directly with you. You want to show your interest that way, but also it's a courtesy and also shows your confidence. You want to be as enthusiastic as you can be without being silly. You don't need to be silly. You need to simply say how impressed you are with the place you're in and how much you think you can bring. So you want to demonstrate your passion, especially when they're asking you questions. This is the moment to tell them what teaching means to you. You want to be as articulate as possible. You want them to know that you are happy to be there. You're a good listener, you're a good speaker, and you're very focused on what you have to say. Again, the list of questions, it's quite all right to have a list that you refer to. The point is you want to ask questions that are going to get at the meat of what they do there. Not every school does things the same way, and if you can observe that there's something unique about that school and then highlight it in a question, it's going to make a very big impact. You do need to demonstrate your ability to use technology. They want to see that you can use a PowerPoint presentation, or maybe you can use other tools to demonstrate a math problem, whether it's graphing, whatever it is. You do need to be able to show some of that. There are so many different programs, I'm not even going to go there. I often have the impression that somebody is just like a shiny new penny when they come before a committee of interviewers. And that is the best comment that I can say to you. If someone thinks you are shining, you have made such an impression, they want some of that shine in their school. And so all I can say to you is if you can, smile as much as possible. Show them that you're glad to be there. When they ask you questions, you need to jump on the question before it's finished. It's better to kind of hang back a little bit, think for a moment, gather your thoughts, and give them a very sincere answer. It's very clear when people are disinterested or aren't telling you anything that really matters. So you want to practice answering questions. Practice talking about why you want to be there. Being concise is another very important thing because you don't need to rattle on and on. They're giving you their attention. Be concise and get to the meat of your answer quickly. Let's talk about the bad things. I've seen many bad things, so I can talk about this rather easily. If you are sloppy, it does not bode well. Again, your personal appearance speaks volumes about how you're going to behave in front of the students. Because from the moment you walk in there, you are a model. You are acting as a teacher. I've had people who are too relaxed, who think they have the job in the bag before the first hour is up. Little did they know it didn't work. They were not sincere. And your being too relaxed means you want to be a buddy, and that is not what this situation is about. This is about finding a fit where you will be a professional. Being inattentive is difficult. If you have not slept well, if you haven't eaten well, this is when your attention can vary. And consider a school day is somewhere between 6 and 7 hours long. They might keep you 6 or 7 hours. So you must be attentive the whole day, which is why I'm saying avoid crazy food. Don't eat too much sugar. Eat the food that's going to see you through. Uh, the other thing, when you greet people, give them a handshake. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about by the dead fish. This is when someone gives you a handshake when they really don't want to shake your hand, but they're compelled to. So what I'm saying about that is give it a firm shake. You don't want to break their hand, but they need to know you mean business, and they need to know that you're a sincere adult. Give them eye contact, shake their hand, pleased to meet you, how do you do? It is formal, so you need to be in that mindset. Again, you want to avoid sounding disinterested. If you really don't want the job and you're trying to just practice interviewing, I think you're wasting everyone's time. Uh, you really have to understand that they're in it for the good of their school, so your interest is particularly important to them. On the flip side of articulation, and I hope I'm articulating clearly for you, you don't want to mumble any answers. You certainly don't want to mumble in front of students because they will give you looks to kill. They want to know what you want. They want to know what you're about. So you want to avoid mumbling. Of course, the worst thing is when a person has no questions at all because they didn't find out anything about the school. That tells you a great deal as well as an interviewer because you have to wonder, is this just something they flipped into? Is it something they're taking as not a serious opportunity? So it leaves a bad impression when you don't have questions. If you're afraid to use technology, I would say hone one skill that you can demonstrate and then fake it in terms of saying that you are looking forward to learning about using more because the fear of technology holds everyone back, including your students. So you want to be as with it as possible. If you can do PowerPoints, use PowerPoint. If you can use Excel, use Excel. Use whatever it is that you know you can use freely without feeling at ill at ease. Another thing is being pretty dull. I've seen several people who just don't impress because they are too shy, they are too held back. Remember, this is your chance to let them know what you think about teaching, what you think about their school. If you're praising their school, they're not going to think you're dull. They're going to say, that was very good of that person to notice the work we do here. And it leaves a positive impression. Giving short and incomplete answers. Again, it's better to take your time and give a complete answer. They're going to ask you what you think about teaching. They're going to ask you why you want to do it. They're going to ask you many questions that if you plan them, you're going to have something really solid to say. And then, of course, the last one, which I'm guilty of myself many times, is talking too much. When you are asked a question, don't rattle on and on. They're being polite to listen to you. They want to be attentive to you, but if it seems like you're repeating yourself again and again, they lose interest in you, and they're going to think you might do this to your students as well. Okay, so after your day site interview, you want to email the people you met. It could be the district representative, it could be the principal, it could be whoever is supervising your grade or subject area. You want to thank them for the time they've given you and the opportunity that they've offered you to come and represent yourself as a professional who wants to teach in their school. It's a very important touch. Not many people do it, but those who do leave a lasting impression. It goes hand in hand with everything else we've just spoken about. So don't be afraid to do this. In fact, if you're serious about that school, you want to offer them the chance to meet again. You want to say, I so enjoyed being there. I look forward to knowing more about your school. It really matters. Okay. So, follow-up phone interview is something that everyone gets excited about, but you have to remember you're still being professional here. You have to be sure that you're on your toes during it. They call you for a very short time to follow up. First of all, they want to know, are you still interested in this job? And if so, they often will tell you what they thought of you in terms of how you presented yourself, how you did your demo lesson, and they will hopefully offer you a chance to come in for a job offer. And that is, of course, exactly what everybody wants. So again, you need to have paper and pen handy because you're going to be excited inside and you have to calm down and write down when you're going to meet them, where you're going to meet them, who's going to meet you. All of the same things that applied to the on-site interview before apply now. The difference is now you don't have to bring the folder with all of the prep for your demo class. Uh, you have to be ready to provide whatever it is that they need. So if you have any doubts, that's the time to say, what will you need from me on the day that we meet? Oftentimes, you're going to spend a lot of time filling out forms, but it's very important that you bring the proper information with you so that you can do it properly in one meeting. Okay, so when you go for the follow-up meeting on site, typically a contract is offered, and this is when you would sign it. Now, it's not appropriate for you to ask how much you're going to make. They will tell you what you're going to make based on your experience. If they have questions, they'll ask you, but typically they've already measured this out. They'll direct you to someone in human resources to fill out forms like W-4s and things like that. You may have another meeting with a department chair or with the people who you'll be working with on a daily basis, which is just a wonderful, wonderful thing. It's almost a celebration because you'll be very psyched and they'll be happy to have you if they are pleased with what you've done so far. Now, many of the things that I've mentioned here happen at a specific meeting for you. But depending on the size of your district, they often have orientation days for new hires. So each one does it according to their system. So if there are 30 new hires, they don't want to go through this 30 individual times. So don't be put off if you sign your contract and nothing more at this meeting. You may be called back for the orientation days for that purpose. So it depends on the district. One thing I would say to you, when you meet with anyone from your department or team, you would want to know what you can do to start getting ready early. Especially if it's in the spring and you have the whole summer in front of you. You want to know, do they meet over the summer? Do they include you in those meetings? What can you do to prep for the fall? Because believe me, you're going to need that leg up when you get started.